issue the work was carried out by two other colleagues of mine, Pilar Cáceres from the University of Granada and Mariana Carvalho from the Polytechnic of Porto as myself. So the very quickly, the motivation was a workshop that we have been organizing in the Miss Fortel conference at the time. In this edition, in 2021, we had 7 papers. These authors were invited to submit their papers or extended versions of their paper for the special issue. And then we ended up having 28 submissions for the special issue in total, of which we accepted 11 papers. And for us, it was very good to see that we had submissions more or less from all over, of course, from very selected countries, but more or less scattered around, which was very interesting. About the special issue, it was the motivation when we started to organize even the workshop in the conference. It came up during the COVID pandemic. We were already, in my group, we were already working with gamification. But especially with the COVID pandemic, that we all moved to our homes, we felt that we really needed to invest more in it because we wanted to keep students motivated and engaged, and it was very difficult to see. So we felt that there could be some interest in organizing something around this, and that was like the focus that we wanted for initially for the workshops, and then for the special issue was this issue about motivation. So how gamification can be used in learning and in teaching, with the main goal to keep the students motivated and focused and engaged. I think for me it was very interesting that the special issue at the end was not only focused on that. So I think I kind of learned a lot in the process. But it also shows that. So it also shows that that there are very important positive outcomes of gamification, not only in motivation and engagement, but in other aspects as well, as we will see. These outcomes are generally positive. It also shows that there is a lot of interest, a lot of different applications and initiatives, very diverse ones. And from a realistic perspective, it also shows that there are some challenges or some things that we should take into account when we do this kind of initiatives. So very quickly, as I said, what I tried to do here was to try to organize the papers according to their topics. First of all, I'm not very good at drawing, although I like visualizations very much, but I tried just to cluster them. And the first cluster is actually the one that I expected to have more papers, but fortunately it was not the only one, which is about, I would say, classical examples of applications of gamification for learning. So we have 4 papers that we attributed to this cluster. And what these papers shows, what they show is that we can have very different fields of application, very different domains in which gamification can be used. So some examples that we have in this special issue are about business education, medical students, for training actual teachers as well, for furniture assembly, and so on. So very diverse fields of teaching. I also stole some pictures, some figures from some of the papers, just to tease you into reading all of them, or at least some of them. So these are examples of some pictures of actual works that were either implemented or that were carried out with actual students and data collected from them. So I did not pick from all of the papers, but just from a few selected ones. Then the next group of papers that we have, which were also very interesting, is about the perceptions of teachers. So some of these papers are about designing actual questionnaires that can be used to understand what are the perceptions of teachers, and others are from the actual perception. So after using these questionnaires or similar instruments, what lessons can be learned from teachers. And some of them are a mixture of these things, of course. And this is, for me, it's very interesting because I think it's what helps us keep it real and carry this work in a more realistic way, because they show not only the challenges that there still are, they show very good practices that we should follow, and sometimes they show what things teachers need to do in order to be able to do these things. The general perception from the teachers is that there are positive effects, as I said earlier, so on motivation, on engagement, on learning outcomes. But this is limited by the resources, by the planning, even by the time that teachers have to implement these things. So for me, these were like very, as I said, very realistic lessons that we can learn from these papers. And I remember some cases in which I don't know the exact paper now, but in which some examples were given of tricks or things that teachers had to do, like sharing the responsibilities, sharing the tasks, so that they could actually implement these things, because probably we are all in the same situation. We don't have a lot of time to devote to these kind of approaches, and we really need time if we want to do it appropriately. So I think these papers provide some very good examples and things that we can learn from the experience of these teachers. Also, I didn't say, but some of these papers would fit in more than one category. As I said, this is not a perfect division. It's just a way of organizing them and of telling you what are, from my perspective, the main topics of the special issue. Another very surprising, maybe, topic that came out during the special issue was the fact of using students as game creators. So usually we think of students as the recipients of the games or of the gamification process, but there are some papers in the special issue that show us the advantages of using students as the creators of the game, not necessarily the games that are used in gamification, or in some cases, these are the games that are used in gamification by other students in other degrees. But just like the task of creating a game as a way to educate students, it's also about that. These papers show also positive effects on development of critical thinking, of collaboration, of creativity, and so on, especially when there are appropriate frameworks for the students to do this. And this is also, I would say, a general conclusion that we can draw from the papers in the special issue. So when we carry out gamification in education, it should always have some kind of framework, some kind of structure, so that we don't do it just for the game or just to have fun. This also shows up a lot in the papers. And finally, the last group of papers, just two in this case, are dedicated to, I would say, to game elements or to gameful design. Of course, once again, these are not the only two that deal with this topic, so this is probably not the, I don't know, not the best division, but I try to find the main focus or the main topic of these papers. These two are specifically devoted to these issues of the different game dimensions that can be used, the game elements, the frameworks like the Octalysis frameworks and others, so they do it in more detail. And the lower one, especially for me, it was interesting because it has to do with inclusion. So with using games with young people of marginalized communities that often don't have access to computers or that have a difficult access to it, and how games and gamification can be used to get to them and to motivate them to, in this case, to develop their skills for when they move to work. So what I learned, especially from these two papers, is that that gamification approaches should be inclusive, should take into consideration the needs of the students, and should contribute for them to achieve their life goals. Otherwise, they would be just games that we would play for fun and not have an actual impact on the life of students. These papers, and some of the others as well, of course, they show how diverse and how different these approaches can be in terms of the environments that we can use, the dimensions, the game elements that we can use. So that there is really a lot of things that we can use to create these gamification experiences, which is, I think, it's very positive and very motivating as well. I just put here one example of a role-playing game, but there are other papers that have examples of either of augmented reality or virtual reality, that I have put some pictures in the previous slides as well. So it's, as I said, it's very rich and very diverse, and for me it was one of the most interesting things as well. So I didn't want to take a lot of time, so finally just to thank the authors, first of all, the reviewers, and the journal as well, especially to Carlo, for all the help that you gave us and that all of you gave us to be able to organize this and to come to a successful publication. So from my part, this was it, just to give you more or less a brief overview. And now let's move to the important part about the authors. Thank you.